As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow over Okala, the maidens gathered in secret behind the village square. They were tired of being overlooked, tired of watching Obi and Ada grow closer each day. They couldn't allow it to happen. Obi was supposed to belong to them, to the young and beautiful women of Okala. No one, not even Ada, could take that from them. Miriam, one of the more cunning and jealous maidens, spoke first. Her eyes were sharp, and her voice was filled with venom. "We cannot let this go on any longer. Obi is ours to claim, not hers. She is nothing but an orphan, someone who has no place in his life. We must do something to put an end to this." The other maidens nodded in agreement, their faces set with determination. They were willing to do whatever it took to win Obi back, to destroy the connection he shared with Ada. Miriam leaned in, lowering her voice to a whisper. "I know of a way. Ada goes to the river every evening to fetch water. If we can catch her away from the village, we can take her. We'll lock her away somewhere, and Obi will have no choice but to turn to one of us. He will come looking for her, and when he does, we will be there, waiting for him." The other maidens exchanged glances, their eyes filled with excitement. The plan was simple: kidnap Ada, hide her away, and watch as Obi came running to find her. Once he did, they would be there, offering themselves as the solution to his problems. It was a cruel plan, one that showed the depth of their envy and the lengths they were willing to go to claim what they believed was theirs. Meanwhile, Obi had begun to notice the tension among the village maidens. He could sense the jealousy in the air, the way their smiles no longer reached their eyes when they spoke to him. It was as if the warmth of their greetings had been replaced with something colder, more calculating. And it was all because of Ada. He had tried to dismiss the thoughts that lingered in his mind about the other maidens' intentions. They were young, beautiful, and sought after by the men in the village. He had rejected them, but they would move on, eventually. But his thoughts kept returning to Ada, to the way she smiled when they spoke, the way her eyes lit up when he offered her his company. He had never met anyone like her. But the village was changing. There were murmurs in the square, whispers in the shadows. Some of the young men had started to look at him strangely, their jealousy evident in the way they avoided his gaze. The women, too, were starting to act differently, especially the ones who had once been so eager to win his favor. Their smiles had turned into something more hollow, more dangerous. One evening, Obi went to the riverbank where he had often seen Ada. He had grown accustomed to her being there, the quiet sound of the water, the way she filled her pot with graceful ease. But as he arrived that evening, there was no sign of her. His heart skipped a beat. He called her name softly, his voice carrying across the water. "Ada." But there was no answer. Obi's instincts, honed by years of battle, began to tingle. Something wasn't right. He walked along the riverbank, searching, his eyes scanning every corner. That's when he saw a small girl, no older than 5, standing by the edge of the river, holding a piece of cloth in her hands. The girl was looking up at him with wide eyes. "Where is Ada?" Obi asked, crouching down to her level. The little girl's eyes flickered nervously. "I heard the big girls talking. They said they were going to take Ada away, so no one can see her again." Obi's blood ran cold. The maidens. They were the ones behind this. In their jealousy, they had taken Ada. Obi's heart pounded in his chest as he stood up and turned to leave. His mind raced with the possibilities. Where could they have taken Ada? He needed to find her, now. There was no time to lose. His thoughts were sharp as he recalled the paths he had walked with Ada, the places they had spent time together. He knew the land better than anyone. If anyone could find her, it was him. Without another word, he sprinted towards the village outskirts, where the dense forest began, his feet pounding the earth beneath him. His muscles burned with the effort, but there was no room for hesitation. He could not let Ada suffer because of the jealousy of others. The sun had nearly set, and the darkness of the forest began to press in on him. His heart was heavy with worry for Ada, but he could not let fear control him. He would find her, he had to. Obi's legs were like thunder as he raced through the dense forest at the edge of Okala, his breath ragged in his chest. The darkness of the trees loomed around him, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper with every step he took. The familiar paths he had walked 1,000 times now seemed foreign, as though the forest itself had shifted to conceal the truth he sought. But Obi was not a man to be deterred by the unknown. His heart pounded with urgency, driven by the need to find Ada, to save her from whatever cruel fate the jealous maidens had planned. The little girl's words echoed in his mind. They said they were going to take Ada away, so no one can see her again. Obi's fist clenched. The thought of Ada, his Ada, being taken from him by the hands of envy filled him with a fierce anger. The young women of Okala had been so consumed with their own desires that they had no regard for Ada's feelings, her life, or the friendship they had begun to share. The more he thought about it, the more his resolve hardened. No one would take Ada from him, not while he still breathed. The wind howled through the trees, its gust carrying the scent of damp earth and the distant cries of birds. Obi pushed forward, trusting his instincts, moving deeper into the forest. He knew the maidens couldn't have gone far. They had no real plan beyond their blind jealousy, and their anger would have made them reckless. The faint rustle of leaves underfoot gave Obi hope. He was close. After what felt like an eternity, Obi reached a clearing. He paused for a moment, scanning the area. And there, by a small, secluded hut hidden behind thick vines, he saw them, Miriam, the leader of the maidens, and the others who had conspired to kidnap Ada. They stood in a circle around the bound Ada, who was kneeling on the ground, her eyes wide with fear but also defiance. Obi's heart clenched at the sight of her. The maidens didn't notice Obi at first, they were too busy celebrating their supposed victory. Miriam was laughing, her voice cutting through the stillness of the forest. "Soon, he'll come looking for her," she said, her eyes gleaming with malicious satisfaction. "And when he does, we'll be waiting. He'll have no choice but to turn to one of us. Ada will never take his place. No one ever will." The other maidens nodded, their faces lit with cruel anticipation. But there was one thing they hadn't counted on, Obi's unshakable resolve. Obi's jaw tightened, his muscles coiling like a serpent ready to strike. He wasn't going to stand by and let them win. He stepped forward, his presence suddenly felt in the air like a storm about to break. "Enough." Obi's voice rang out, cutting through the night. The maidens froze. They turned in shock, their faces pale as they saw Obi standing there, his eyes burning with fury. Ada looked up in surprise, relief flooding her eyes when she saw Obi's towering figure. She tried to rise, but the ropes that bound her were too tight. Miriam stepped forward, trying to regain her composure. "Obi," she said, her voice dripping with faint sweetness. "You've come for Ada, haven't you? She's nothing but an orphan, a girl who has no place in your world. She doesn't deserve your attention. You should have chosen one of us. We are the ones who are worthy." Obi's eyes narrowed, his gaze cold and unwavering. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he said through clenched teeth. "Ada is worth more than any of you could ever understand. She has more strength in her heart than all of you combined." Miriam scoffed, but Obi wasn't listening. His focus was solely on Ada now, his heart pounding in his chest. He moved toward her, ignoring the other maidens who were trying to block his path. "You won't get away with this," Obi warned, his voice low and dangerous. "Let her go. Now." The maidens hesitated, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. They had never seen Obi like this before. He was a man of strength, of battle and victory, but now, he was a man who had found something worth fighting for, something worth protecting. Miriam, seeing that the situation was slipping out of her control, shouted in desperation. "We won't let you take her. She's nothing, she means nothing. You choose one of us, Obi. You have to." But Obi's resolve was unshaken. He had already made his choice. Ada was the one who had captured his heart, not the envy-driven maidens who saw nothing but their own desires. He knelt beside Ada, his large hands gently untangling the ropes that bound her. "Are you all right?" Obi asked, his voice soft as he helped her to her feet. His eyes met hers, filled with concern, and Ada, her face a mixture of fear and relief, nodded silently. "I am now," she whispered, her voice trembling as she touched his arm, grateful beyond words for his rescue. The other maidens, their plan foiled and their pride wounded, stood frozen. They had no words, no way to undo the damage they had caused. Their jealousy, their hatred, had led them to this, facing the very man they had all once desired, the man who had chosen someone else. Obi stood tall, his hand still resting gently on Ada's shoulder. "Go back to the village," he said, his voice commanding. "Tell them what you have done here. Let them see what your jealousy has cost." As the maidens fled into the darkness, their steps heavy with defeat, Obi turned to Ada. The two of them stood in silence for a moment, the forest now quiet around them. "I won't let anyone take you away from me again," Obi promised, his voice firm. He looked at her with eyes that held both tenderness and a burning, unspoken love. "You're mine now, Ada. And nothing will change that." As they made their way back to the village, the first light of dawn began to break, casting a golden glow over Okala. It was a new day, a day that marked the beginning of a new chapter for Ada and for Obi. When they arrived at the village, the other villagers stared in shock, their eyes wide with disbelief as they saw Ada walking proudly beside Obi. The maidens who had once mocked her now looked at her with a mixture of awe and fear. Ada's life had changed in a single night, and so had the way she was viewed by everyone in Okala. But it wasn't the villagers' opinions that mattered to her anymore. It was Obi's, and that was all she had ever needed. The sun shone brightly over the village of Okala as preparations for the long-awaited wedding of Obi and Ada began. The entire village buzzed with excitement, the air thick with the scent of freshly cooked food and vibrant flowers. Women adorned their best garments, their faces glowing with joy as they helped to decorate the village square with garlands and colorful cloth. The men, too, were busy preparing for the feast and festivities that would follow the ceremony. Obi and Ada had chosen to marry in a simple yet beautiful ceremony. It was not the grandiosity of the wedding that mattered, but the love they shared, love that had grown through struggles, understanding, and deep admiration for one another. And it was love that had been tested in the eyes of the village, but now, it was a love that everyone would celebrate. As Obi stood by the entrance of the hut where Ada was preparing, he felt a sense of peace. The village, once full of judgment and whispers, was now alive with celebration. The maidens who had once scorned Ada now stood silently by, watching the union with a mix of awe and envy. They could not deny the happiness that radiated from Obi and Ada, nor could they deny the quiet strength that Ada possessed, strength that Obi had seen from the very beginning. And as the day unfolded, it became clear, this was a celebration not just of love, but of transformation. Ada, once the orphan scorned by the village, had become the heart of it. And Obi, once the unattainable warrior, had found peace in the woman who loved him not for his strength, but for his heart. As the ceremony began, men from far and wide traveled to Okala to witness the marriage of Obi and Ada. They brought with them precious gifts, golden beads, intricately woven fabrics, and livestock, all symbols of the respect they had for Obi and his bride. These men, many of whom had heard of Obi's strength and bravery, now came to pay tribute to the woman who had captured his heart. It was a sign of honor, not just to Obi, but to Ada as well. The gifts were piled high before the couple, tokens of admiration and respect that made the village square glow with wealth and abundance. It was a day like no other, a day when the love between Obi and Ada was celebrated by all, and the wealth of the community flowed like the rivers that ran through Okala. The maidens, once proud and hopeful that they might be chosen, watched in silence. Their eyes were filled with a mix of envy and disbelief. How could Ada, the orphan, the girl they had once laughed at, have captured the heart of the greatest man in Okala? How could she, of all people, have what they had longed for? But as the gifts piled higher and the celebrations grew louder, the reality set in. Ada was Obi's choice. There would be no changing that. And in the eyes of the villagers, that was more than enough. The ceremony itself was simple but beautiful. Obi stood tall, his dark eyes locked onto Ada's as she approached, wearing a gown of soft blue that shimmered in the sunlight. Her hair, once wild and unkempt, was now styled with care, her face glowing with the kind of happiness that only love could bring. As she reached Obi, her heart swelled with emotion, knowing that this moment was the culmination of everything they had been through, everything they had overcome together. The village elders, now fully accepting of Ada and her place in Obi's life, officiated the ceremony. Words of blessings were spoken, prayers for their future were offered, and finally, Obi placed the wedding band on Ada's finger, a symbol of their eternal bond. In return, Ada did the same for him, her hands trembling slightly as she held his. "You are my heart, Obi," Ada said softly, her voice full of love. "And I will always be by your side, no matter what." Obi smiled, his strong arms pulling her close as he whispered in her ear, "And you are mine, Ada. Now and forever." The crowd erupted into cheers as the couple sealed their vows with a kiss, their love witnessed by all who were present. It was a moment that would be etched in the memories of the people of Okala forever, the moment when love triumphed over envy, and when a quiet, strong woman who had been overlooked found her place beside the greatest man in the village. As the sun set over Okala, casting a warm golden glow over the village, Obi and Ada danced together, their hearts in perfect harmony. The village square, once a place of jealousy and competition, had become a place of unity and celebration. The people of Okala, now fully embracing the couple, celebrated their love, knowing that it was a love built on trust, respect, and strength. The maidens, who had once envied Ada's position, now watched with a sense of quiet reverence. They knew that they could never take away what Obi and Ada had built together. No amount of beauty or wealth could compete with the bond they shared. In the days that followed, Obi and Ada began their new life together, surrounded by the love and support of the village. The gifts that had been given to them, precious metals, animals, and food, were used to further strengthen the community, bringing prosperity to all. Obi continued his work as the great warrior and farmer of Okala, but now he had a partner by his side, a woman who had proven that true strength lay not in physical power, but in the heart. And as the years passed, the story of Obi and Ada, the warrior and the orphan, became a legend in Okala, a story told from one generation to the next. It was a story of love, resilience, and the quiet strength that could change the course of a life. Obi and Ada lived happily ever after, their love a beacon of hope and inspiration for all who knew them. The jealousy and envy that had once threatened to tear them apart faded into the past, replaced by respect and admiration for the bond they had forged. And as they grew old together, their hearts remained as strong as ever, a testament to the enduring power of love. Thank you so much for watching this beautiful and inspiring story of Obi and Ada. Their journey is a reminder that true strength lies not in wealth or status, but in the heart, the ability to love, protect, and cherish those who matter most. In the face of jealousy and adversity, their love triumphed, and their bond became an unbreakable force that no one could tear apart. The moral lesson here is simple: never let society's judgment define your worth, And always believe in the power of true love, because it can change everything. We'd love to hear your thoughts about the story. What did you think of Obi and Ada's journey? Do you have any reflections on the lesson they taught us? Drop your comments below, and let's continue the conversation. If you enjoyed this story, please support us by liking the video, sharing it with your friends and family, and most importantly, subscribing to our channel for more captivating and inspiring African folktales. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories to life. Thank you for being part of our community, and we look forward to bringing you more exciting tales in the future. Until next time, stay inspired.